Hello, everyone. If you can hear me, kindly give me a thumbs up or send an emoji. Um, we are still waiting for some people to join, but we will start shortly by 12:05.
Hello, Emeka. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Professor Matt.
Hello, Professor. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me, please? If you can hear me, let me know.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. This is 107, so I think we can just begin. We can just begin. Welcome everyone to the webinar. My name is Emeka Ude. I am a PhD student at the University of Padova, Italy. I'm also a recent graduate of the NORISK Masters, and I'm super excited to have you all on the call. We have in our midst also the program coordinator of the program NORISK, and person of Professor Jose Matos. And also we have other NORISK graduates who are also on the call to share their experiences about the NORISK program. The idea behind this webinar is just to try to give some kind of a background about the program, as well as answer some questions that most people have. And so this session is for would be for 1 hour, and we'll try to rush through it with the time we have. So first of all, we would go in to begin, and the first thing we want to do is to have a welcome address by our professor, the coordinator of the program, who is on the call, Professor Jose Matos. Is going to give us a welcome address and also give us a brief on what the NORISK is about and everything about NORISK. So, Professor, I'll give you the floor to.
So, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to see some faces here. I think you can hear me or not. Yes, okay. So, first of all, I'm very happy with this initiative where we can share the NORISK Master as well, some of your experiences with newcomers, and also we can speak and see many faces, what are doing or not doing or ever. But most important is to dedicate this webinar to the master. NORISK is started last year, so all the students are the first NORISKers. We are now running the second year, and the purpose of the master is to fill a gap in the society related with the topic of risk and management of existing infrastructures. And this was identified with many stakeholders, and that is the reason why we have more than 100 associated partners that are supporting this master. And the idea is to give competences to professionals that in the future, either in academic or in industry, they will apply such competences on the better sustainable management of our built environment. Because in most of our courses, we focus too much on the new construction, on a new design, and almost nothing is focused on existing infrastructures. And according to the last World Bank report, every country should spend around 4% of the GDP to maintain their infrastructures. So this means that there is a lot of work to do, and we'll start with aspects from the assessment, monitoring, but also then we go to aspects related to the application of AI and digital twinning and many other tools and technologies to support the decisions of what to do, when to do. But also we also raise aspects related with risk and redundancy, robustness, and so on, so that we can have infrastructures more prepared, and also the society more prepared for the extreme events we are seeing quite recently also here in Portugal, big storms, but not only in Portugal. There was in Philippines, there were all over the world, in Caribbean, US, and so on. So again, it's very important. It's a challenging that we are facing nowadays. Your generation will have even a bigger challenge because of climate change and so on. And the idea, in this course is to give you competences, to give you skills on how to approach better this challenge and to solve problems like these ones. So the NORISK is given by 4 main institutions, coordination by University of Minho in Portugal, but then we also have University of Catalonia in Spain, in Barcelona, University of Padua in Italy, and La Rochelle University in France. And these are the 4 main universities, although we have more than 100 associated partners from industry and also from NGOs and from academia. And then a part of it, the course is the students are split in two places in the first semester. That is aleatoric. Each year it varies. Last year was in La Rochelle and Minho. This year is La Rochelle and Padua. But next year will be in Padua and La Rochelle. So every year we change the locations where students have the classes. And then also after that, students will move to another institution for doing their dissertation. During the class period, they will have the integration project where you apply most of the contents that you get from the units into a real case study, and then you present that, of course, for evaluation. And then the dissertation is something can be mostly focused on research, and others are mostly focused in research, dissertation in application, because they are doing the dissertation with internship with the companies and so on. So the idea again is to fill this missing gap, not only in academia and universities, but also in the ecosystem, in the stakeholders, because the requests are higher and higher. But the truth is that we have a few engineers with the ability to deal with this problem all over the world. So you can later not only join one academic center for doing PhD. This, of course, is one possibility, but also you can join companies, consultants that are working worldwide on this field. You can join NATO, you can join United Nations, you can join World Bank. Many of these entities, they are leading with the management and the risk-based management of our critical infrastructures. So it is something that we miss. We miss people with competences, and that's the reason why we need the NORISK. And with or without scholarship, we need people that are investing in themselves, in their curriculum, and that are able to join, integrate, and after that go to the ecosystem and apply what they learn into the better sustainable management of our built environment. So more or less, Emeka, this is a short, not so short, but presentation of NORISK. You have, of course, access to internet and many other things about more information about it. But I'm happy now to open discussion and for any doubts that you may have or so. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor, as always, for your kind words. And I hope we all listened to him very, very well. One key point I noted from what he said was that there are a lot of gaps open for people to actually fill in, because these problems keep arising. And so I believe those of us that are on the call, the aspirant, I think we most of us should be looking at, these issues of lack of professionals, enough professionals in that sense. Okay. So moving on, we'll begin the panel session where we will have to, go through some questions from that will be answered by the graduates of the NORISK, and also the professor if he also has, an aspect, to contribute to. But before then, we want to quickly do a very small, like, activity. So we're dropping a poll. I want us to try and attempt this poll. And let's just see for the participant. It's just an icebreaker. So you just try to attempt the poll. I don't know if you can see it. So we'll just give 1 minute or 2 minutes. I don't know. Okay, I've seen a lot of response. A lot of responses already coming in. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think we have a lot of people, responding to the poll, so we can just give about 10 seconds or 20 seconds, and then we end the poll. Okay, in any case, the poll can even go on as we move on to the next session. We'll see the results from the poll as we move on. And so I would want to invite the NORISK graduates who already completed the program to come on board because we're going to begin the session. So you just take 1 minute to introduce yourself, your name and your track, and maybe any other thing you want to say for each of us. So I would go starting with Stephen.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Ampofo. I'm a chartered professional engineer from Ghana and recent alumni of the NORISK Master's Program. My cohort or my track was from France and then Portugal. So I did my first semester in France and then I moved to Portugal for my dissertation. So that's just a brief introduction. Thank you.
All right. Kelly, do you want to go?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Camarena, a civil engineer from Peru. I have 4 years working experience as a geotechnical engineer, mainly on mining infrastructure projects. And most recently, I had the opportunity to complete the NORISK program, studying across France and Italy. And I'm very excited to share my experience with you today.
Great. Neka?
Good everyone. My name is Neka Namani. I'm a civil engineer from Nigeria. My mobility track is France and Portugal. I think that's basically all. Thank you for having me here.
Okay. Thank you for coming on the call. Aditya, you want to go?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Aditya Kumar Verma, and I'm from India, and also a recent graduate from NORISK. My track was I did my coursework in France and my thesis in Portugal, and my background is in geotechnical engineering and highway design.
Okay. Valentina?
Hi everyone, my name is Valentina Velandia. I'm from Colombia. I have a bachelor in civil engineering and 2 years of experience in the construction industry, mostly as site engineer. I studied my coursework in Portugal and then my thesis on France. And welcome to everyone.
Okay, okay, great. So I will just end the poll and we just share the results so that we can see. I don't know. Can you all see the results from the poll? Okay, so it turns out that majority of participants actually got it correct because got it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on. So for the panel session, I will just ask some questions to the panelists, and we'll try to address some of the many questions that we usually get when aspirants try to reach out to us, because this webinar was actually conceived due to the request from different prospective applicants, and so we'll try to address some of the questions. So begin, I think the way to begin is to do your application and submit. And some people would want to ask what makes a very good motivation letter to be able to come into the program. So I'll be asking Neka this question to probably share some insights, what would make a motivation letter stand out.
Okay, thank you, Emeka, for this opportunity. Um, for me, I think writing a motivational letter is quite a bit difficult to some extent because I still struggle with doing that myself. But my goal today is just to help you understand what makes a motivation letter strong and makes it stands out. For me, a motivation letter is to address your interest, your fit, your purpose, and then your potential for a particular program. So for you to have a strong motivation letter, it is centered around three key questions, which is the why, the how, and then the what. So I'll just address this question in a quick way based on my understanding. When it comes to the why, we are trying to talk about why do you want this program? In a sense, what is your motivation with regards to the program? And in this, we are talking about the NORISK program. And for you to be able to understand that, you have to go through the program website and also look through your career goals, what you really want in life, and try to see if they align together. And for the fact that you are here, it's already clear that you went through that route and then you've seen yourself quite a candidate for the NORISK program. So for you to do this, I would actually suggest you not to be generic in your open statement. What I mean is instead of just writing, I am writing to apply for the NORISK program, you could actually begin your open statement with something personal about yourselves that talk about your motivation towards the program and try to align that with the goals and objective of the program. Then this brings me to how you are prepared for the NORISK program. This actually forms 2 to 3 paragraphs of your motivation letter. And in this particular point of the letter, you are trying to address your academic background and then your achievements so far. For those that have a strong CGP, I would encourage you to include that, especially if you're a recent graduate, because it actually helps. And then for those that it doesn't mean you are not qualified for the program. It just means you have to show in details what makes you qualify for that. And the CGP is not just a criteria, but actually it gives you an age So if you don't have like a strong CGP and then you don't have like a proper work experience, you have to like try to include voluntary works you've done while in school and even after your school. That is very, very a key area you can also include in that. And then when you are highlighting these experiences in terms of your voluntary work and your professional experience, I would advise you not to take the generic route. What I mean is, instead of stating that you've worked or volunteered for social organization, you could actually use numerical numbers to show what you have done. What I mean is, like, you could say you improved simulation accuracy by, let's say, 18% while you were working in so and so industry or in a particular project. That actually gives you credibility in what you have done as a professional or even as a student in your voluntary work. And then this brings me down to the question what, which talks about what will you do with the opportunity if given the program. What this means is being admitted to NORISK, even as a scholar or under a scholarship, it's like an investment to yourself. So the program will want to know what you would do after gaining those experiences. So you just have to tell her your career goal in terms of the short and long-term goals you have. You have to make it clear and realistic. And when you are doing that, you also have to look through the goals and objective of the NORISK program. It has to align with what the NORISK program aims to achieve at the end of the day. And then in this particular section, I also encourage you go through the program, look at the website, read what they want, try to include the core competence that they need in the program, and then try to like read through it. There are some things that they mention that might interest you, that you feel could add value to your application or your motivation letter. I will encourage you include that in your motivation letter because it shows the committee that you actually took your time to go through their website and to take information that are relevant to you and also in helping you make a good application. With this, I
Thank
could say
you.
this is what I feel makes up a good motivation letter. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for this insight, Neka. So for someone that wants to apply, he might be, he might be skeptical to say, I don't really have experiences, with, work experience and stuff like that. I don't know. Does this really matter in application to this program? Aditya, do you want to I'll ask you this question. Do you think work experiences matter for those that are just coming out fresh from the university?
Uh, so hi everyone. So I would address this question about work experience because for myself, I have just graduated in 2024 from my bachelor's and I applied for the program and I got selected as well. So I would like to mention like the criterias which are important for getting selected in an interview for NORISK. So other than your work experience, the other criterias are your higher education, the recommendation letters which you have, the publication track record, as well as your motivation letter. So the first thing which you have to do is to max out everything other than your work experience, such as the motivation letter, as mentioned by NECA in detail right now. Other than that, you can perfect your recommendation letters by like making them tailor-made as per the requirements of NORISK. Like you have to highlight those experiences, those things, those skills which are much more in line with NORISK in your recommendation letters so that it can stand out. Other than that, if you have a great GPA in your bachelor's, then it would work very well. NORISK also looks after publication track record. So if during in your bachelor's you have done some research, then you can add them. You can put them in the application and it would be a good way to stand out from the crowd. So other than work experience, work experience is not the only criteria in which your application would be judged. There are many other criteria as I discussed.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditya. So the NORISK Master Program is just for 1 year, and some might be asking, would there be opportunities for internships? And how does this work if the program is just 1 year? Valentina, I don't know, do you want to help address this kind of question?
Yeah, sure. About the internships, we can tell that there are internship available, but only for the students who are making their thesis in La Rochelle University in France. And the way it works is that we sign an internship agreement directly with the university, not with any private company, with the university. It's 4 months length, 35 hours per week, and there's a small economic compensation. And the way it works is the same way it works for all the other three universities. You are assigned a topic, a supervisor, and you have to work. It's independent work with flexible hours, and you have to organize with your supervisor your topic and work with it like that. And somebody was asking about the topics and the dissertation. In my case, the topic was your adaptation strategies against floodings. We all were given different topics depending on the university we were making the thesis.
Mecca, can I
Okay.
say something
Thank you.
about
Yes.
this, about what was mentioned before as a coordinator
Okay,
regarding
Professor.
the application to be successful or not, and take into account the experience we have from this side as assessing all the applications, and also experience we have from this side in many other masters that we also are involved. There is one limitation, first of all, which is we have a limitation by the European Commission on 10% of the master attendees per country. So this means that in a total number of scholarships, we cannot have more than 10% of scholars from the same country. This means that there are countries on which this year and last year are already in this almost this limit, and students from that country will have much more difficulties to get scholarships because the assessment procedure will be much hard comparing with students from countries that are not yet represented. This is something that the Commission obliges us to maintain. Then, apart of that, we also assess many aspects. The first thing that we assess, and we are even changing the platform for submitting the applications. I'm not sure if this year or only next year, but one thing that we will assess is the credibility of the documents that are provided. And if all the documents are there, you need to read carefully what is on a website. There are many students that send documents in languages that are not translated. There are documents that are outdated. For instance, we ask for residents, and we receive many students with residents which the proof of energy or whatever is outdated, is like 5 years ago, and we ask with 1 year at least of 1 year of 1 year before up to now. There are also students that send proof of residence like energy bills, but from their parents or sisters, and we cannot prove that unless this is clear on the passport or so. So it's very important to take care on the documents you provide, because there are many students that do not go to the second stage because of not accomplishing all the documents. Now, in the second stage, we have, of course, careful in the country where it comes from, as I told before. We try also to have a bit balance between gender and also a bit balance between the backgrounds, because we don't only want students that just finalize the university and enroll in the master. No, we also want students that have some experience already in the companies and do a 1 year leave for doing the master. And we go also to see what were the universities each student did the courses, the grades, and recommendation letters is very important. We need to have signed the recommendation letters from your professors, and also again letters that should be resent. And also we take into account, of course, as was already expressed by Neka, your motivation letter is very important, that you show why you really want to do the NORISK, why is your purpose. Based on that, there's a third stage, which is an interview. And in that interview, we of course assess the English, but also we assess your background about the topic, if you read something or not about the program, about the master, and we detect easily students that are really willing to apply to that master as a priority, or the students that are applying to 10 or 20 masters, and the only thing they want is a scholarship. So we do not want students here that their purpose is only to have a scholarship. We want students that their purpose is to get knowledge on risk and management of existing infrastructures. And this is the main point. And we receive many students also that say, we want to do NORISK with or without scholarship. And this should be the mentality. The scholarship is something that is a plus, but it's not the end of your life. And when this is in your mindset, okay, I'm gonna do it with or without, then in the interview, we identify easily that students. And most probably that students will have the scholarship at the end, because these are the students that are really willing to do the master independently of having or not a scholarship. They did the application, they did a good application. We see that they really want to do the master. And we have students that say, no, we only apply to this master. We don't want any other one. We really want this one because we feel that this is a need and I need it for my curriculum, for my background. And these are the students that normally we select for the scholarship. Because then there are another stage of applications, of course. And in that stage of applications, the second one, we only have what we call as consortium scholarship. And we will have next year or this edition, the associated partner scholarships. Just to give you also an idea, the associated partner scholarships are scholarships given by the associated partners. And this means that the students that do have that scholarship should follow the dissertation with the associated partner. And then at the end of the master, the associated partner, there is a kind of agreement between associated partner and the student, if they wish to follow that scholarship. But this is only in the second stage. The consortium scholarships are scholarships that the consortium normally offers, which cover the tuition fee, but not the monthly rates. Okay, this is also to be clear. Now, two more important things for everybody. The first thing is that in Padova, you can only enroll with 300 credits, and there is a panel that assesses if your background is from civil engineering or not. If you have another background, or if you do not have the 300 credits, you cannot enroll in Padva. Saying that this year and the next year, half of students will go to Padva. So if you have 300 credits and a background on civil engineering or similar, this means that your chances are much higher because you feel and you fit the request from one of the partners that are going to receive the students for the classes. This is very important also to mention and to share with you. The other thing that is also important is about the visas. We had many students that got the consortium scholarship mostly, and at the end they were not able to come because of visa processes. The two main reasons for not being able to come because of visa is the first reason because we are trying to make it earlier and earlier, but the first reason is if you have any criminality record, and I don't put names, but this happened also with students that got scholarship, but from somehow the connection, familiar or so, they were related with some organizations that the European Commission do not allow them to enroll in any master. And the second reason for not being able to come, and this is more on the consortium scholarship, it is students that do not present enough funds for enrolling the master. And even if you ask your friends and familiars or so to put the money or bank account to show to the embassy and so on, they have the registers of when this happens. And if this happens in the last month or 2 months or 3 months, they say, okay, this is like a coordination to show that you have money so that you get a visa. And then they say, no, we are not going to give the visa to that person because that person should have this money at least 1 year or more before the application to the master. So because we cannot allow, and this is very important, we cannot allow someone to come to here and suddenly do not have money to follow the master. And this happened not in NORISK, but with other masters, that they were invited, these people, to return back to their own country. So it is a loss of time for the people. It is a loss of time for the professors and for the coordination. So then the students do not do the master, and the professors will lose students, and these people are occupying a position that could be occupied by other people. So if you have a consortium scholarship, or if you are self-funded, please be ensured before submitting the process that you have money in the bank to survive 1 year in Europe. And I mean around for the consortium scholarship, you have the tuition fee paid, but I'm speaking around 1,000 euros per month, which means more or less 12,000 euros in 1 year. 12 to 15,000 euros. This is what the embassies normally decline, and the reason why they decline the visas. And the other thing is about the self-funded, because self-funded, normally all self-funded students we got, especially this year, these are students that pay the tuition fee and that pay the monthly rate. So the students that are really willing to do the NORISK, first of all, and also students that have properties, they have enough resources to do the NORISK and to enroll, and they don't need the scholarship, they don't need the consortium scholarship, they can come as self-funded. So whenever we ask each student if you are able or not to come as a self-funded or a consortium scholarship, You should be very honest with the professors, with yourself. And if you can come, okay, you just simply say yes. If you cannot come, it's better you say no. And then because of the resources, whatever. And then it's our side to say, okay, we like this person a lot, but he cannot come. Maybe can open one more scholarship or so this year. But this is better than you say, I can come as a consortium or self-funded, and then we strict the number of scholarships, and then the consortium self-funded are selected in a second stage, and then you lose the opportunity to get the scholarship because they were already given all in the first call. So it's much better that you be clear and you say yes or no if you can come as a scholarship. The other thing is about internships. It is right what Valentina mentioned. In the first year, La Rochelle was the institution that provided internships, and some students that did internship in France, it is mandatory that you should receive a support whenever you are in an internship in France. This is changing. First of all, in UPC, there was one student also doing an internship in a company. I don't know if he received support or not, but this is changing. So this year we are going to have internships in much more partners, not only in France. And the only difference that exists is that in France it is mandatory. If you do an internship, you need to accept the thesis topic, and it is mandatory that you should receive an additional amount of money when you are in internship. In the other countries, this is not mandatory. In Portugal, in Minho, I will say that normally the companies pay some support to the students, and this will happen this year in some of the companies when the students do internship, but it's not mandatory that they will pay or not. It's a decision from the companies. In France, it's mandatory. In Portugal, in Spain, and in Italy, it's not mandatory. But we had a board meeting, and this year there will be proposals for dissertations with companies in all the institutions, and there will be support. I would say in some of them there will be support to the students for doing internships. So this happened in the first year with La Rochelle, but in the next year, in this year that we are now, and in the following years, this is something that will be not only limited to La Rochelle, but will be also enlarged. And it will be not only enlarged in a way that also we will have partners in US and Europe and so on that are going to propose dissertations, and they want to receive students there for 2-3 months. They pay the travel costs, they pay the costs there, and this is something that it's a novelty that we are also going to introduce this year. From all the students that were last year, they all finished their dissertations. They can maybe make later can send to everybody the list of the dissertation topics that you have, but the dissertations probably will be open in the website soon if we need to see in terms of GDPR, but the idea is to make it open for everybody. But what I was mentioning is that the this year there will be some small changes on this sense, and we all students finished their dissertation except only one that is going to make an extension. and again, this student who went to another country for doing dissertation is from one side is good, from other side is not so good, because you also have the risk of delaying it. But again, I think that we are also learning from the first intake, and in the second intake. So this year there will be novelties for all of you that will apply, and in the third year will be even more novelties. So I think I reply and answer all things. If anyone wants to put the question, feel free.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. We've already spent a lot of time, and we really want to take questions from the participant, but I see that some questions have been put on the chat, and the NORISK graduates are already trying to address most of them. So quickly, before we close, I just want to give Stephen the floor to just because a professor talks about selecting universities, the different universities involved in this program. I want to ask Stephen, what do you have to say in terms of selection of universities and in terms of living expenses in these universities? Just in 1 minute,
Thank you very
please,
much.
because we are about to close. Yeah.
All right, sure. Generally, in terms of the selecting universities, first of all, you have to check visa requirements and availability of embassies within your localities. That is the track that you'll be given and where you'll be applying for. That's the most important thing. But generally, they are all beautiful places, and you shouldn't have a problem moving there and studying there. In terms of the living expenses, I know we have some figures on the NORISK website, but generally, just to give a background on the realistic figures in terms of accommodation, you'll be getting a stipend of 1,400 euros. And generally, accommodation should be ranging from 300 to 750, depending on the countries. And then maybe you should be spending around 200 on food and transportation monthly. So the stipend that you'll be receiving will be more than enough to cater for the entire master's program, and also for your traveling expenses during the integration week. So it's sufficient. I would have loved to go deeper into the details, but we are pressed with time. But it's just to give a background of how much money you'll be receiving for the scholarship, that is the Erasmus scholarship, and how sufficient it is for the program, and then how your stay will also be comfortable. So generally, I think you can also reach out for further details after the webinar.
Can I say something? I was hearing
Yes,
that
Professor.
you were also answering all the questions. Agricultural engineering can be, of course, one, because there are many problems with the risk related with the infrastructures for agriculture and so on. Food is very important, and water. So again, it's open totally. And then the other thing is about French documents. Yes, if you French, we receive documents from French, and even worse, we receive documents in Chinese, in Arabian, in wherever you can imagine. If you can have translated documents in English for the assessment purpose, is much better, to be honest. So is not mandatory, but is highly recommend. And it's not necessary even to have official. You can bring the official in French, and then you can make a translation, something like that. But it's important because for us, we do the assessment, and not everybody speaks well French. So the course is given totally in English. The other thing, the application will be opening this month, until the end of this month. And then there'll be a second one that will be opening in February. But the one that gives the scholarships, the one for Erasmus scholarship, is this month until end of January. And then the other one is for associated and consortium scholarships. Then about the 10% code of this program, I don't know what you mean with that question, to be honest.
Hello, sir. Can I clarify my question?
The
Sorry for
10%
interrupting.
code of the countries, yeah, is for the whole program, okay?
No, I
So
mean,
we
is it
have
cumulative? Like, is each
we have
last year's batch affecting?
we have like imagine 100% scholarships. So 10 cannot go, or 11 cannot go to one specific country. It's limited to 10. We already know, according to the number of years and the budget we receive, we know how many scholarships we're gonna have. And then we have this limited. So if you have in 1 year, we have like 10 students from one country, then in the next years, we cannot give any Erasmus Mundus scholarship. We can give consortium, we can give associated partners, but we cannot give Erasmus Mundus scholarship. Now, the last point that Stephen was mentioning about the mobility track. This is very important. First, if you want to choose Italy again, you need to be sure that you need to have 300 credits and you need to be in civil engineering or similar. For the other institutions, you need to have a minimum of 240 credits, and you can have agriculture and other engineering fields. Choosing the mobility track, there are, I would say, when, for instance, the students that are going to apply now, it will be La Rochelle and Italy. And as Stephen mentioned, you need to know exactly what is easy for you, if it is to get visa to go to Italy or if it is get visa to go to France. So you can have this preference also according to if you have an embassy of France in your country or of Italy, you can have better. I must say that the Portugal this year worked very well. I think all the embassies are aligned and are working well. What is important is to see if you have embassies in your country, because in some countries, for instance, Portuguese embassy there does not exist, which obliges a student to go to another country for an interview and then again go back to Portugal. So if you have Campus France in your country or so, then you can choose La Rochelle, or if you have Italian embassy, you can choose Italy. So this, I would say, this is a because the NORISK is given by the four institutions. You're gonna have professors from the four institutions. The materials are from the four institutions. The costs between Barcelona, which is the most expensive, it will be only in the second semester. So between Padua, La Rochelle, and Guimarães, costs are more or less similar. So I would say that yeah, visa could be a decision. The 300 credits and the background you have in civil engineer not could be also a decision. But again, if you have that 300 credits and background, you have more chances to go to Padua and get a scholarship, because there are few people that could accomplish that. And the next path, if you go to Barcelona or if you go to Ming or whatever, again, you can take a look into the professors from each institution that are giving the lectures, and according to your topics of interest, if you have any more specific topics, you can choose them, these institutions, because you can go to any of the four. You can choose them to take into account your interests, okay? And in the website, you have information about the topics of the professors. So, but this is more for the second semester and for the dissertation. For the first semester, I think the two is the visa and the requirements from Padova or not. The last thing that I also want to say is that many of you just come into the master and during the first semester you change opinions. And also there is a way you come and then there is an associated partner that presents a nice topic and you want to go to US or to UK or wherever and you do there the dissertation. So the mobility track is something that it's difficult to say, okay, I want to do this one. But then during the process, it's not, I would say all of them are very good. So you can try to choose, take into account your interest in topics, and also take into account the visa, take into account these requests from Padova, and also take into account the cities, of course, and the countries. But we speak all in English. I think that at the end is not something very big, the mobility track, because at the end all of you will gonna have opportunity to meet everybody, and all of you have the opportunity to have the NORISK graduation master, and this is the most important in my view.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. So I will just give Kelly just 1 minute to just give final words because we're supposed to close the call now. She should just give us the final words on her experience, during the NORISK and everything. Yeah, and also some advice to students, of course, from the student, from applicant perspective. Yeah.
Well, just to complement a little what all my colleagues and the professor has said already, I would like to give like some pieces of advice with you all. First, start early. Maybe earlier than you think, because the application is not something that you can do in just a weekend. You will need time to gather all the documents, draft your motivation letter, revise your CV, reach out for recommendation letters. So starting early gives you space to improve your ideas and present the best version of yourself. Second, try to connect your past experience with your current interests and your future goals. Explain why your journey naturally leads to this program and how this program will help you to grow professionally and personally. So don't use a generic motivation letter. I think that the more specific and personalized your application is the stronger it becomes. And finally, choose wisely your recommenders. Don't go with the person with the highest title. Instead, go to the person who truly knows your work, and a strong recommendation letter full of concrete examples is more powerful than a generic one from someone who barely remembers you. So reach out early, give them context, and thank them for supporting you. I think these are the things that helped me on my journey, and I hope they can help you make your experience smoother and more successful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. And I think that does it for this webinar. We've received a lot of insights, a lot of advice, a lot of suggestions, and I hope that those that are participating on this call, sorry we are not able to have you open your mic to ask your questions, but I really believe that the professor, especially Professor Jose, already explained all the different aspects of this application and things that you should avoid. And of course, with the advice from the NORISK graduates, I think you will all do well in your application. One thing I just want to add is that you probably don't want to focus on the scholarship alone. Just apply based on you wanting to improve yourself, right? Based on improving yourself in this field of risk assessment, and not just to focus on the scholarship alone. Also read the website very, very well. All the information, you have all the information there on the website. So thank you very much. If you have other questions, maybe you can send a message I don't know now. Maybe you can send me a message on LinkedIn, of course, at any time, and then I will try to address them. But I believe all the questions have already been addressed here on this call. So I want to thank Professor Jose again for taking out this time, because it's not easy to bring a professor out of his busy schedule to do this call. And I want to thank also the NORISK graduates, Neka, Kelly, Valentina, Aditya, and Steven. Also, we're supposed to have one more NORISK graduate, but he was not, chance to join. Also, I want to recognize other NORISK graduates that are on the call. I have Jose also on the call, Rosso Jose, and I also have Amma Rose. Yeah, she was on the call, but I think she left the call. And other NORISK graduate on the call, I thank you all for joining the call. Thank you very much, and we'll call it a day. Professor, if there is no other thing, I think we can end the meeting.
Yeah, for me,
Permission.
we can consider close. Thank you very much as well for the invitation. And again, the most important is that you go to website, you speak with your previous colleagues, and that you really want to do the master independently of whatever is the constraints or so. You really want to do. This is something that is in your mind. And if this is the case, then you should move ahead, and the things for sure you're gonna get it. But you need to really want to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll call it a day. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, see you all. Thank you,
Yeah.
Emenka. Thank you all. And
Thank
nice
you,
to see you.
Professor. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Right.